Hi guys, I'm so sorry this is late. I did record this already, but the mic wasn't on. So therefore there was no sound. You can just see me going yap, 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 and writing very quickly. So I've only really got half an hour. Fingers crossed we're going to get through as many questions as possible. I might talk fast through it, but pause it. Okay, so this is your end of term test where you had questions on SERDs, modeling, so on, that we needed to go through so you could do your retest, where I know you're all going to do amazing. Okay, so question 1. We've got x root 2 minus root 18. Now, before we do anything, we're going to simplify that root 18. Now, you can just put it in your calculator and it'll give it to you, but it's the same as 9 times 2, so 3 root 2. Once again, if you put root 18 into your calculator, it will tell you it's 3 root 2. And that equals x. Now I want all my x's on one side. So I'm going to move this x over here onto this side here. So I'm going to get x root 2 minus x. And then at the same time, I'm going to move the minus 3 root 2 onto the other side. And hopefully that works. There we go. That's better. And I'm going to take x outside the bracket. And now I want x on its own, so I divide by it. Now, the problem I have is I've got a surd on the bottom, and I don't like surds on the bottom. I need to rationalize it. So I need to multiply it by root 2 plus 1. So do you remember you changed the sign? Now, what you're actually going to do is just type this using your fraction button into your calculator. And your calculator will automatically give you the final answer of 6 plus 3 root 2. And you've shown your working by showing times. As far as anyone's concerned, you did that all in your head. Right, so that's part 1. Part 2. Solve this equation. We're going to put everything in terms of 2. So 4 is the same as 2 squared. This is the same as a half times 1 over root 2, which is 2 to the minus 1 times 2 to the minus a half. Alternatively, you could have multiplied top and bottom by root 2, which will give you root 2 over 4, which is 2 to the half over 2 squared. A half take away 2 is minus 3 over 2, which is the same as if you add those. Okay, so 4, 2 squared. 3x minus 2. And all of this side, no matter how you did it, you work out is 2 to the minus 3 over 2. Now, because that 2 is the same, you can just take these top bits and equate them. So I'm going to get 3x minus 2 equals minus 3 over 2. Divide by 2 equals minus 3 over 4. Rearrange, x gives you 5/12. Okay, so question 1. Question 2, modeling question, lots of words. Don't worry about the words. We're going to ignore the words, okay? So key thing here is the fact that you have the word linear model. You see the word linear, your brain is going to go y equals mx plus c, y equals mx plus c, need coordinates, need a gradient. Okay, so now we're going to read what is our y the same as and what is our x the same as. So we've seen linear, so our brain is going to go mx plus c. And we can see we want an equation of a with n. So my y is the same as my a, and my x is going to be n in this equation. 1997, so n years after 1997. So n in this case is 0. And my a is carbon dioxide emissions, doesn't matter if you don't know what it means, is 190. So I've got 0, 190 as a coordinate. Now I've got 2005, which I need to work out is how many years after 1997. So it's 8 years and 169. Okay, so now I've got 2 coordinates. I just need to find an equation of a line. So I can put them in my calculator. I showed you how to do that before, but that's going to be your check. But let's go find our gradient. So we're going to do 169 minus 190. So I've done y2 minus y1, 8 minus 0. Now, you could have taken it away the other way around. You'll get exactly the same answer. I get 21/8, minus 21/8. And I already know my plus C because I know 0, 190. So I've got A equals minus 21/8. Instead of X, I've got N plus 190. So that is my equation linking the line. The next bit says, in 2016, the CO2 emissions in the UK was 120. Comment on the suitability. So you're going to say, what do I think it is in 2016? So 2016 minus 1997 gives me 19 years. So for part B, I'm going to say when N equals 19, A equals minus 21/8 times 19 plus 190. And then I'm just going to stick it into my calculator. So minus 21/8 plus 190. And that gives me 140.125. And then I'm going to say not suitable model because 140 is bigger than, or you could say a lot, you know, a lot is a bit just bigger than 120. So it's significantly bigger than 120. That's it. Okay, question 3. This is a nice straight line question. So we want to look at, we're looking at perpendicular. So we're thinking about gradients. I'm going to rearrange this to get y equals to be able to find my gradient. So 4y equals minus 2x plus 3. Y equals minus a half x plus 3/4 because I divide by 4. So minus 2/4 gives you minus a half, and then you've got 3/4. So the m of line 1 is minus a half. So the perpendicular, do you remember you flip it and you change the sign? So when you multiply them, you get minus 1. So if I flip that, I get 2/1, and the minus becomes a plus, so it's 2. So for part A, m equals 2, because we're trying to find the perpendicular line. So now we've got two equations, y equals minus a half x plus 3/4, and y equals 2x plus 7. We want to solve them simultaneously. We can put them into the simultaneous calculator in our calculator, but let's work it out manually. So we're going to make them equal to each other. 2x plus 7. We're going to times everything by 4. Well, I am, because I don't like fractions. They annoy me, and I always make a mistake. So 8x plus 28. Put all the numbers on one side. So we're going to get 10x equals minus 25. So x equals minus 2.5. Right? Or 5/2. Doesn't matter how you write it. Question 3. More algebra. Okay. So we're going to make them into their indices. So we're going to go 16a squared equals 2a to the half. Now what we want to do is put everything on one side. Now you might have divided by the number, put the indices, got a solution. That would be fine, but you would have lost one of the solutions. So as long as you check for 0 when you do something like that, when you divide by an a or an x or something like, then you're okay. But the better way to do it is to put it all on one side, make it equal to 0, take out your lowest factors. And so then you'll have 8a to the 3/2, because to get squared, we'll do a half plus 1.5. And then you say either 2a to the half equals 0, so a equals 0, or 8a to the 3/2 minus 1 equals 0, so equals 1, so a to the 3/2 equals 1/8. And then in your calculator, you just use the square root button with like a square like that, and 3/2, and it'll give you a quarter. The reason that is to the power of 3/2 means that you're cubing and square rooting. So you can do the opposite. You can cube root the 8 to give you an eighth, to give you a half, and then square it to give you a quarter. Or you can just put it in your calculator. Now, if you did all of this, you got 3 marks. If you didn't do the a equals 0. So if you've gone directly and divided both sides by 2 and then divided the a squared or whatever onto the other side, that's also okay. And if you lost that mark, not the end of the world. Okay, part 2. Right, this is a disguised quadratic. Now, you'll get better at recognizing these because you're going to end up doing them and they come up loads and loads and loads, and you're going to do them really often, and so it'll be fine. So we're going to let x equal b squared. So we're going to get x squared plus 7x minus 18 equals 0. At this point, if you just put that in your calculator as a polynomial and got your 2x values, that's fine. But it's quite an easy one, so we should be able to factorize factors of 18 with a difference of 7, 9, and 2. So we want plus 9 minus 2. But again, like I said, if you just went straight to x equals 2 and x equals minus 9, you didn't lose any marks. Okay, so b squared equals 2, b squared, because that's what x is. It's illegal. Okay, not illegal. Okay, so you get an imaginary number. It's not something you can do in maths, normal maths as we know it. Take a square root of a negative number. So we're going to write not valid, or we're just going to put line through it. And so that means b can be plus root 2 or minus root 2. Remember, whenever you take the square of a number, it can be positive or it can be negative. Okay, next one. Again, we've got that word, linear model. So when my brain is going, y equals mx plus c. Right. What's my y? H. What's my x? T. So I've got h equals mt plus c. So I want coordinates. So remember, the t is going to go first, then the h. What is the t? The t is number of years. Okay, so that's my t's, 3 years, 6 years, and my h in meters are these two. Okay, so these are my h. So I'm going to have 3, 2.35, and I'm going to have 6, 3.28. Now the fact or the blurb is there doesn't matter anymore. You've got 2 coordinates. You find the equation of the line going through those 2 coordinates. So we're going to find our gradient, change in y, divided by my change in x. So 3.28 minus 2.35 over 3. And I get 6 minus 3. Yeah, and I get 0.31. And now I just put it into my formula. So if you remember, your formula is y minus y1, mx minus x1. But this time, instead of y, I've got h, and instead of x, I've got t. So I'm going to have h minus h1. Doesn't matter which set of coordinates I use, as long as they match. Don't use the x from one and the y from another. Right, and I'm going to clean that up. 0.31t. And I'm only cleaning it up because I'm going to need to use it. Minus 0.93. So h equals 0.31t and plus 1.42. Okay, that's part A. Part B, we're trying to decide if it's a good model. We know the height of the tree was 140 when it was planted. So when it was planted, the number of years is 0. So we know when t equals 0 in our equation, h equals 1.42. But my units are meters, which is the same as 142 centimeters. So I'm going to say, read the question and just use the wording in the question. I'm going to say this supports use of linear model as, sorry, my writing is awful at the moment. I'm trying to write really fast. 140 is approximately, that's what those wiggly line means, 142. And that's it. Okay. More straight lines. So here, a lot of you got the workings right, but you didn't quite get why you would like how to write it out. So we've got 4y equals 3x plus 10. So y equals 3/4 x plus 10 over 4. So we can see here that the m of line 1 is 3/4, because remember, we've now put it in that form, y equals mx plus c. For line 2, we're going to find our m, change in y over the change in x. So y2 minus y1, and because it's minus minus, it's going to become a plus. And then minus 1 minus 5. So we're going to get 9 over minus 6. So minus 3 over 2. So my m of L2 equals minus 3 over 2. So it's saying, and you can't just write neither. You've got to say why it's not parallel, why it's not perpendicular, therefore neither. But we don't like too many words. We're going to simplify that. We're going to write 3/4, and we're going to write an equal sign with a line through it, representing is not, minus 3 over 2. 3 dots is therefore not parallel. And then we're going to do 3/4 multiplied by minus 3 over 2 is not minus 1, therefore not perpendicular. So neither. Okay. Okay, now we're on our quadratic modeling. I look at this graph. It's a negative quadratic. I look at the equation they've given me. I'm not even reading the question yet. And I'm like, oh, it's incomplete to the square form. That means I know what my maximum is. Because my maximum, remember, if it's a negative graph, if I've got something in this form, it's always minus CA. So I look, oh, that's minus 9. So minus minus makes a plus. So this must be 9, 100. And then I read the question, and that might be useful, that might not, but it's an observation I've made. Okay. Part A says, explain why £15 is not a sensible selling price. Right, so let's look what A and B are all about. So P and, X are all about. P is profit, and it's measured in thousands of pounds. X is selling price, and it's in pounds. Okay, so that thousands of pounds is quite important, and now actually makes a bit of sense, because the company is not going to just want to make £100 as a maximum. It's 100,000. Makes a bit more sense. Right, I'm going to substitute in some numbers. It says explain why 15 is not sensible. So let's put 15 in. Now, when I stick that in my calculator, I get minus, so 15, oh, let me double check this, 9 squared times minus 6.25. All right. 15 minus 9 squared. Yeah, so I get minus 125. Now remember, in terms of profit, that means minus £125,000, right? And this is not sensible because the company has got a negative number, so it's making a loss. So negative, company making loss, make a company losing money. Now you might have said, you know, it's making a loss, it's not positive, you know, what should be positive, anything along those lines is going to get you the marks. Right, now it says, given that the company made more than 80,000, find the least possible selling price. So we're going to make it equal to 80,000, and then we know the least possible is that rounded up. So it's not 80,000 into the formula, it's just 80. Now, if you put 80,000, you'll have got a weird answer. So hopefully your brain would be like, let me take another look at that and figure out where you've gone wrong. So you've got 80 equals 100 minus 6.25 x minus 9 squared. I'm going to minus the 100 onto that side. So minus 20 x minus 9 squared. Remember, when it's in complete to the square form, don't open it all out again. You don't need to. Change these both to pluses, because 6.25 equals x minus 9 squared. I'm still not typing anything in my calculator. Now I can take a square root. So square, because the more things you type in, the more likely you're going to make a silly mistake. Now that can be plus or minus. So x equals 9. Now I want the least possible. So I'm worried about the minus bit this time. I stick that in. When I put that into my calculator in one go, not lots of little lines. So 9 minus square root button, fraction button. 20 over 6.25. And then SD to change it, I get 7.21111 something. So £7.21 is going to be my lease price. Part C, we've already done. We identified that right at the beginning. We said the annual profit was 100, which we know is in thousands. So it's going to be 100,000. And the selling price was £9. Need the pound signs. Otherwise, you don't get the marks. It's an application question. Okay, question 8. We have a graph. We want to come up with the equation. Yes, it looks like a projectile. Yes, because projectiles are quadratics. But no, it's not mechanics. It was in your exam. So look at it carefully. Right, we've got height. So H represents height. We can see it's quadratic because it's a curve. We're told the maximum height is 12 meters. So at the maximum, I've got 12 here. And we've got, it hits the ground 40 meters. So that's 40. Quadratics are symmetrical. That's got to be 20, right? Okay, now I want to get an equation. So I'm going to have H, which is like my Y, equals, and then I've got to think about it. I know my roots. So I know this would be X, like X equals 0 when I would be opening out my brackets. And this could be X minus 40. Because if I make that equal to 0, it gives me the 40. And I'm going to stick a value in the front. Because AX, that number could be anything. And we're expecting that number to come out negative because I can see I've got a negative graph. So I'm going to substitute these in. So 12 equals 20A, 20 minus 40. So 20 times minus 20 is minus 400. So minus 400A equals 12. So A equals minus 0.03. So I've substituted that top bit in. And therefore, my quadratic equation is H equals minus 0.03x, x minus 40. Alternatively, and this is just if that's how you're used to seeing it, and you want to do it using completing the square, your general formula for completing the square for a negative quadratic would be that. We can identify that A is this value and that C is this value. Well, minus C is that value because we know our maximum point is minus CA. So we could have written this equation as H equals 12 minus B x minus 20 squared. And then to find the B, we could have substituted in 0, 0. So 0 equals 12 minus B minus 20 squared. And you'll see that B comes out to be 12 over 400 again. So we'll get 0.03. So you could have done it like that. Up to you. Doesn't matter how you do it. It will affect a little bit how you do the next question. So you've got to use the equation. We want to find the passes. We want to find the greatest horizontal distance when the bar is 3 meters above ground. So what we're saying is if the bar was here and this was 3, what's the greatest distance? So we're not looking for this one. We're looking for this value here. So in the last one, we took the minus when we took the square root. Here, we're going to take the plus. We're just going to put it in our calculator. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it equal to 3. If we go with what we had before. Here, we have to open it out because it's not in our completed the square form. So we get plus 1.2x. Put everything onto one side. So minus 0.03x squared plus 1.2x minus 3 equals 0. When I substitute that into my calculator, I get minus 0.03, 1.2 minus 3. I get 20 plus 10 root 3 or 20 minus. I want the plus because I want the greatest height. I get 37.3. I go check what the units are. It's meters, and I have to write meters or m at that. A limitation of the model is we're not taking anything else into account. The type of the ball, the shape of the ball, spin of the ball, if there's any air resistance, anything logical will have got you a mark. Okay, last question. Right, we see the word roots, real, not real, and our brain is going to say discriminant, and I can't spell. So discriminant. Okay, and that's b squared minus 4ac. So to do that, we need everything on one side. So I'm going to move the 5 and the 2 onto the left-hand side. I'm now going to put my squareds first, then any x's, then anything else. Because I want it in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So I can identify that my a is 3, my b is minus 5, and my c is k minus 2. So when I do b squared minus 4ac, it's no real root, so it's less than 0. I've got minus 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times k minus 2. So I get 25 minus 12k minus and a minus, so minus 12k and then minus minus, so plus 24 is less than 0. So 25 plus 24 gives me 49 minus 12k is less than 0. Minus 12k is less than minus 49. I can't just get rid of the minuses because remember, say you have 5 is, I don't know, smaller than 8. If I multiply or divide both by minus 1, that's going to become minus 5 and minus 8. Now, minus 5 is bigger. These are just random numbers, nothing to do with the question, but just showing you why. When I make this a plus, so in the next line, I'm not going to actually do it on this line, I've got to then, if I divide by minus 12, I have to flip the sign. So k is greater than 49 over 12. I'm so sorry that I've said that so quickly. I think I've done it in under half an hour, but hopefully that's useful. And see you guys tomorrow. I'll upload it now onto Teams, but if you don't manage to watch it, sorry, I will, or you'll be fine. Just there's questions are identical tomorrow's test. You'll be absolutely fine. So let me stop the recording.